Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Classic DM. Now we're going to do something different today. We're going to show you about a bunch of cool stuff that's all interconnected, that's going to give you a way to get involved in our game sessions and direct the story. And the best way to do that is to kind of give you a snapshot overview of where to start to get involved, maybe get some bookmarks set up, how to find some of the information on social media, and then you can pick which outlet you want to do to find out like what happened in the last episode, what's the latest storyline, is there something I can vote on, what about the loot drops. What I've been trying to do lately is share information about the show on a couple of first edition D&D Facebook groups, Dungeon Masters Facebook group. I haven't really entered into the fifth edition crowd because the show's all first edition oriented. I don't want to go in there into territory that's really dedicated to 5e, but let's pretend you're watching this video on YouTube, right? And you've gotten a link from Facebook, and maybe you don't use the web a lot, maybe you don't have a lot of subscriptions on YouTube. Let me just show you how much cool, fun, free stuff that you can get involved in here. And the whole plan for showing this to you today is to just reveal to you where cool, fun stuff is, not to get money from you, okay? So first of all, you got a link to one of my videos. Let's just say you got a link to a video here of season 2, episode 1, and you load it up and normally you have YouTube loaded up. You can turn the volume off here real quick. You'll have the default view, and it has other videos like I've been listening to Fallout music in the background and stuff like that. So when you're watching the videos, like with any kind of video you have on YouTube, there's always a show more button, and you can always put this on theater mode as well. So let's just say you got a video playing in the background, you're kind of listening to it at work, or maybe checking out one night and thinking about a battle, and maybe, oh, why is he doing the rule that way? What have you? So that's happening in the background. And then you can go down here to show more, which is right here, right? So you can go down here to show more, and then you realize, like, wait a minute, I haven't subscribed yet. So you should try subscribing. The reason why I say you should try to subscribe is because the way YouTube is set up these days is it doesn't play ads for monetization until someone has 1,000 subscribers, and that's not the goal. The reason why I'm putting this thing on YouTube is because of archive. Because on Twitch, what happens is every week or 2 weeks or so, when I do a live broadcast, like this one's being broadcast live right now, it starts to delete those. So this is a way for me to export them to YouTube so I can have a library forever. That way, if you ever want to go back and watch one of the, episode 6 mopping up and things like that, it'll remember. So if you subscribe, you'll also get a notification on your phone if you use the app or anything like that. It says, hey, there's a new video up. So that's a good way for you to keep track of what's going on. We're going to pause the background so you have to watch too much dice rolling happen, right? Now, what I try to do in these things to keep it short is I try to just kind of give you a quick snapshot of what the episode is about. People that keep up to date with what's going on every single episode, they know what's happening. But if you're just getting in this kind of late, like it's 2019 in February, you're like, what's this episode, Dogs of Wars? Why is it plural? Why is it not like the Pink Floyd song? You can see down here is you watch the episode live on Twitch. So basically what I'm doing, every single episode is live. So I don't take this into any kind of Adobe program and do post-processing effects. The audio is just on the fly. I have an outline I work from. The gameplay is completely done live because the spirit of the whole show is to kind of capture what it's like to play back in 1978, which is what I did when I was 13 with my neighborhood buddies. So you're never going to really see me make a super polished, fancy video of me walking through a store, picking up miniatures and giggling. I don't really want to do that. I just want to play the game, have cool content, share it with you. And since I don't really want to run a Roll20 game with just 5 exclusive players on webcams, I really want to focus on the maps, the gameplay, and ultimately the story and the characters. So that's one thing you'll notice if you watch any of my episodes. I take the base modules, those classic modules, and I really try to add a lot of interesting detail to it. And for you, someone who's watched some of these videos, what I want to do next is expand a way for you to get involved. And that way you can kind of get involved on again, off again. You don't have to feel like, oh my goodness, I missed some live broadcast. I don't know what to do now. But in every video, like I was saying a moment ago, there's always going to be this section. By default, it's always collapsed. All right. So when you hit show more, almost everyone's going to have all these links down here. And one thing I've tried to do a really good job with is you can click on the name of the channel as well and go back to the core page, right? So you go back to the core page, you have the banner at the top. You'll see how many people are subscribed. Right now, we're just in baby stages of getting the whole channel started, and you'll see whether you're subscribed or not. So I have another Google account that I use. I subscribe just to show you what that's look like. If you unsubscribe, it looks like this. It doesn't really matter whether you subscribe or not. The only reason why I encourage you to subscribe is actually allows you to see what's going on and find stuff in a different order and get more notifications. Now, if you don't want that, that's fine. Just remember to type in classic_DM, and you'll always be able to find the channel. So when you're on the channel, the first thing it does, it tries to show the latest stuff. So the Dogs of Wars, which is on purpose, was the last episode. And you can see even I watched some of it on this other account to make sure it sounded okay. Then you can see the last 3 episodes, and then this was here. These are all from like a season setup, like the Vikings or Orange is the New Black or True Detective. So if you go to playlist, This is all broken down into some Patreon exclusive stuff, but don't worry about that. It's no big deal. Is broken down into what was the season about. Well, the first season I ever started was the steading of the Hill Giant Chief, and the big plan is to go through everything. This same group of characters are going to start with G1, go to G2, G3, D1, D2, D3, probably Queen of the Demon Web Pips. They'll eventually go to Vault of the Drow. They'll go to Barrier Peaks. They'll go everywhere. All those old school classic modules. And what I'll do is I'll add a tremendous amount of storyline to it, because that to me is the real exciting part. And I think my biggest strength in the show is not my ability to execute and memorize all the rules as perfectly as everyone else. I do a lot of stat checks that are kind of traveler oriented. Is the storytelling and bringing these characters live so you can see how they change over time. So you'll see there's episodes all broken down like that. So that season, if you want to just watch, an episode from that module, you can just click on any one of them and say, this one here is called Not Just Giants Involved, what's it about? And remember, you can always click down here and you can see what's going on with this. Let me give you an example of something that you can also do. So let's say you were like, well, I'm subscribed to the channel and I made a comment on one of the videos. I want to know what's going on with that. If someone makes a comment on a video, like let's see this one here, The Great Hall. There was a fellow the other day made a comment. He thought that the characters were too high level. Here he is, David Babbitt. He made a few comments. Great epic battle. I think players are too low for the adventure. I ran it back and aged my players are level 5. I respond to people, and I'm not rude to people either. In my opinion, if you take a moment to engage with people, that's what you're doing the whole game for. It's a social kind of a thing. So this guy's like, how did you do it? Because for me, there's no way me and my friends at age 13 could do this at level 5. We would have got slaughtered. Remember, at level 5, level 5 illusions with max hit points and regular constitution, they're going to have 20 health. They pick one-shotted by a hill giant. But this guy said that when we played back in the old days, they were hit and run. They were using stealth. It was really cool. They'd gotten gear from other adventures. And this is what I think is really cool about the whole old school first edition community. You'll find this in the Facebook groups as well. Is people like talking and reminiscing about what happened when they were a kid, or if they played in the 80s or if they played in the 90s. And I like that stuff because I'm keeping this alive 40 years later, right? So feel free to share your story too. I want to hear what you have to say about stuff as well. It may motivate me or give me an idea to do something new, or maybe you say, you know what, you really got to do Desert of Desolation. I just absolutely love it. Just don't do the first one. Like, I might actually just do that. And so feel free to make comments and share comments. I'll always reply. You're not going to get a flame war out of me. I'm more interested in engaging with people in a fun way, because the common bond here is everyone loves these old classic games, and and maybe they can't play anymore. Maybe they're not interested in going down to a local game studio, a game store that has a bunch of kids playing Warhammer 40K, or going to a place where a bunch of kids are playing Magic the Gathering who are all like 17 or 14 years old. When you're 53 years old, you feel like a third heel in those kind of situations. Maybe your group has got kids, grandkids. So what I'm trying to do is keep the game alive in a way. I'm going to pause this so you have to get flipped out with the dice flipping. Keep the game alive in a way where you can enjoy it when you feel like it. Kind of like a books on tape Audible thing. Okay, so that's one basic thing about the channel you can check into. Another thing you'll notice is on the main page up here in the upper right corner with this silly little banner I use, I have the links to all the other social media stuff. Now, this isn't about money. This is about a way for you to find where the content is and keep track of what the latest content. And you can see, I don't subscribe to this kind of stuff. So you can look up here and see where Patreon and Twitch is, Facebook and Twitter. So I use these different forms of social media for different reasons. My goal in life is not to be like this guy in any way, shape, or form. My goal is to make sure the game stays alive and you have fun going through these classic modules, have a laugh. Maybe you can argue about rules. It doesn't matter to me as long as you're enjoying the game. All I care about is the games. So some people are like, Twitch, what's up with that? Well, this is what Twitch looks like. You go to the basic web page and there's always there's a Player Unknown Battleground, American Finals. There's all these there's all these different games like Call of Duty, Black Ops, and League of Legends. It has like 154,000 people are watching League of Legends games play right now live. So you click on that, people playing Fortnite, and you see all the live channels. And right now there's 33,000 people watching this show here, which is a broadcast about a quarterfinal at Riot for by a League of Legends thing. So a lot of young people love doing this. They love watching live competitions. They like to stream. One of my favorite streamers was Cypher PK, who was an old Elder Scrolls Online PvP player, but he finally just dumped making YouTube videos as a full-time streamer. But the reason why you would want to come here is if you ever wanted to check out one of my shows live, all you got to do is search for Classic DM, and when you do the search, it's just going to bring up videos. Now remember, if I don't do a video for like 2 weeks or something, which is going to be really rare, there'd be nothing there. But what you want to do is go down here to channels. So when you go down here to channels, you say, oh, here's the channel, ignore these other ones. And when you see this channel, just click on the channel. Now the reason why I suggest you do that, and I've noticed I'm not even logged in. Okay, I'm doing this in just a regular old web browser. When you Let's go here to the Classic DM channel. There we go. It's confusing because we're getting picture in picture. It's like being at the barber shop. So what you want to do is when you get there is you'll find there is enough, there's information down here at the bottom. Let's just scroll down here a little bit. There we go. So you're going to see information like here's a link to Twitter, here's a link to the Patreon page, which I want to talk about a lot in a few minutes, a Facebook page I have. I try to make these things interconnected. So I make the shows live on Twitch. So if you follow me on Twitch, you'll get a notification that says, hey, I just went live with something, and it'll say whether it's a sound check or not. But after it's done on Twitch, I'll immediately export it to YouTube to put into the archive, which will be over here, right? Now, at the moment a show starts playing or I've uploaded a video, it'll also tweet something. So that's just a second and third way for you to find out, is a show live? Has something been uploaded? What's going on? The storyline is just debate. This needs to be updated a little bit. We talk about the theme, and you can leave a tip. It doesn't matter to me whether you do that or not. Everyone that streams something, some people are like, hey, I want to give you $2 and let you know your show is cool. That's fine. You don't have to. It's all free. As long as you go to the YouTube page, every single one of these videos will always be free. I will never try to charge money for that. I have a full-time job, so. Well, one thing I do want to bring to people's attention is the Patreon page. And some people are like, Patreon, that's only for people trying to make money. Mine's a little different. So if you've never been to the page before, just go there. You don't need an account or anything. It's just, this is what it looks like. It's got some young kid playing the piano. And you can just imagine people that are craftsmen and artists. They're making all this cool stuff. They're recording their own music. It's an independent, indie kind of way for people to make videos and sell their wares without having to have a publishing deal. And I think that's fantastic. And the spirit of the whole thing is really, really cool. But just go up here to the search bar and type in classic_DM. And you don't even need to have an account, right? And you'll see, here's mine, Dungeons & Dragons Live Play Session. So you click on it. And I'm using this as my core anchor web page. So this thing gets done loading. There we go. Streaming and loading web pages is fun. So you don't even need to have a Patreon account to come here. This is just like going to a Squarespace or website anywhere. And what you can do is just poke around here, because I put almost every piece of content on this page. You can read my introductory reports that talks about the theme, what my plans are, how the shows are recorded. I talk about what the core tenets are, which are character, context, and conflicts. Any writer understands that. This is all just like my thesis statement for the whole show. We have some snippets. This is to let people know, like, hey, what am I about? What's the whole show about? So I'm using Patreon as my anchor point to communicate with everyone, and all the other forms of social media are ways for you to get kind of like notifications. So all the content will exist on YouTube, but additional content will exist on Patreon, and it will never be behind a paywall. If I ever put anything behind a tier, it'll be like, hey, I spent like 4 weeks writing a brand new module. Let's just talk about that for a minute. Now I re-emphasize that here. A lot of people are like, Patreon, you're just trying to get money. Guys who are making lead figures, or they're doing stuff like that, they're selling objects, or artists who are sketching out three-dimensional Diablo-style maps and putting, 40, 50, 60, 80 hours. They are trying to earn a little money on the side. A lot of digital artists do that. I'm a video game designer, so what I want to do is I want to bring the episodes in the game alive for you, and this is a great place for you to find all that kind of content. Let's give you an example. Say you came to the Patreon page and just click on post here. So this is like any website. Everything's kind of collapsed. In fact, right now at this very moment, there's a poll that anyone can vote on. They always start off kind of truncated. You'll see things fade out like this. And I was like, who gets the belt? You're like, what belt are you talking about? Well, if you click on the article, click on continue reading, it says, hey, listen, the last episode, Dogs of War, this is a great place to find out, like, what happened. There was an episode released. I haven't really been to YouTube lately. Maybe using your kid's laptop, and the YouTube channel is just covered with game music and stuff like that. But this is always a good place to start off with. I encourage you to bookmark this one, because I'll put tons and tons and tons of secret behind-the-scene cool photos, information. I speak candidly about everything on here. So in this situation, there's a bunch of loot that was recovered in the last episode. They got this scroll, they got this ring of fire resistance, cold wand, jeweled belt, but this belt turned out to be a girdle of fire giant strength. So right now, up until Sunday at 6 p.m., I don't know when you're watching this video, but by the 21st of October, people can vote. So this account here doesn't have a subscription, but you can at least look at it, and you can see people that have talked about it or whatever. You can say you like it or whatever, even without it's going to try to encourage you to log in, right? So let's just take a look at that in another browser that already has an account. I'm going to close these down. And let's just get this out of here. Let me just open up my regular account that has everything open. So here's our, this is my regular, this is me logged into my own account. Let's just go some of the posts and let you see everything. Okay? So we were talking about this poll, right? So who gets the belt? We said to continue reading, and you can see that some people voted already. So two people voted for the, three people voted for the assassin getting it. One person voted for Zalorus, the secondary warrior from the Tiger Nomads. Um, and then people making comments. There's even you can click load the more comments and see what other people have said. Like someone said they don't think Mercedes deserves it; she's too haughty. And as you go through here, you'll find that there'll be like a post on engagement, and that's what spurred on today's show. So I was thinking, I have someone on the Facebook group said, "How can I get involved?" I'm like, you know what? That's a really good question because when I first started making this, I was like, I'm just going to run a bunch of D&D games and by myself, and I'll use dice rolls to do all the characters, and I really use my storytelling and novel writing skills and game design skills to make the characters feel alive and do it in an impartial way, right? Not try to do it where I'm cheating or anything like that. So if you this is a good article to read. If you've ever played the Telltale games like Walking Dead, the studio's out of business now. They were good games. They're still on Steam. They used kind of this choose your own adventure method, and a lot of the decisions in those games they really didn't make any difference. But there was usually one or two super duper important decisions that would change the direction of what happened in the season or the next episode. Now in reality, they were making these episodes way ahead of time, but they were roping you in. Imagine watching like the Tudors or the Vikings or True Detective, and at the end of one week's episode, you'd be like answering a survey and said, do you think this person should be off the show, like in an old, reality program, or do you think this person should kill someone? And what they used to do in those games is give you a choice. What I'm going to do is to give you the kind of choices you would make if you were at my play session and we all went to school for a week and came back and we're 13 years old. Like, okay, guys, here's the loot. You tell me next week who got the loot, who's going to do what. This is a way for you as a community to say, hey, here's what we want to do with the loot. Or here's what we want to do with some of the information we discovered. So, for example, in this one here, we've had a lot of player props. This is the drought letter that the players deciphered in a previous episode. You'll always find these kinds of assets that come from my little Dungeon Master hand chicken scratch book. I'll put them up here. You'll have links to the videos will always be here, like this Dogs of Lore episode. Sometimes I'll put some additional information that tells you what was funny about the episode. Another thing I'll do is I'll have preview pictures like, hey, I'm getting ready for the next episode. I'm making a bunch of new, in this situation here, I'm making frost giants and winter wolves. And you can see all the materials I used to make it. Sometimes I'll have videos in here that are, like, here's a special one, right? There was a situation in one of the episodes in the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief where Varinjar the assassin one-shotted the keeper. Now, you can actually just click the episode and open that into a new tab, and it'll go right to the point. I timestamped it so you can actually find, it'll go exactly to the point in the map where this happens. I'm just going to let this roll for a second because it's hilarious. So that just give you a quick snippet, So moments like that happen in some of the episodes. So if you go to the Patreon page and read the article, you can find that a lot of times what I'll do is I'll pick out dramatic moments and give you a link right to it. So you're like, oh, cool, they did this next episode. They probably killed a bunch of the ogre magi that are down the frost giant jarl. They probably handled that pretty well. But what about if you know the module, do you know there's some dragons in the lower level? Like, how did they handle the dragon fight? So what I'll try to do, it's almost like making bookmarks because some of the episodes they're played live. They're 2 hours long. I have one that's over 3 hours long. You may not have time during the day or lunch break to like listen to the whole thing. Maybe you just want the highlights. So one thing I'll really do in the Patreon page that's really fun is I'll give you like an overview. Like for example, here the main hand roll is 8 plus 6 is 14, double for 28, then quad 112 damage. And this is a snippet from the original module. This is supposed to be the scariest monster in the lower level, studying the Hell Giant Chief, which I highlight, which I thought was hilarious. I gave him bonus experience for doing that as well. So this is just a quick snippet. There was a monk kidney shot where I'm making fun of the rogue move in World of Warcraft. That's one of the stuns you could do with combo points. You have cheap shot and kidney shot. In this situation, we had Eliphanisi get a double natural 20 on her main hand and her offhand with open hand attacks. And if you attack 5 or higher on another enemy, and it's a humanoid enemy, you get a stun off. And you can see the 2d6 rolls behind there, and I use them as segments. So this is like a long duration stun. So she rolls 2 natural 20s, then rolls a 7 for the stun, a 5 and a 2. So it's 1d6 segments each for a total of 42 seconds to stun. And plus the damage she did, this enemy immediately crumpled. And so moments like that are things that were amazing when you're a kid. When you're playing D&D the first time, amazing last week if you played your old group. So what I try to do with the Patreon page is find those awesome, cool bookmarks and put them here. So if someone's got a busy life, they're like, I really had a chance to watch this video. It's like an hour and a half long. What's going on with this one? I can always find the videos here, like the Infinity Chain video or mopping up from episode 6 or the Drow map and all this kind of stuff. This is a really, really fun place to go find those little magical moments. So let's just go back to the core page here real quick, right? I want to share some other things with you I've decided to do lately with. I think it'll be really cool. So there's a thing you can do in Patreon called you can make goals. And right now we have 2 or 3 little patrons. It's no big deal. I don't know how many people are watching, and some people are commenting on stuff that aren't followers or whatever. That's fine. It doesn't bother me or anything. One thing you can do is you can set a number of goals. So let's go through the goals real quick. Let's go back to this view here. Let's see. Let's go to the overview. And the overview is where and we can go to here to goals. So this left frame here talks about goals. Let's just click on one of these goals and see more. So what if I get 25 patrons? We're at 2. So you got to start somewhere, right? If I get to 25, I'll write and produce a customized encounter, broadcast it live, distribute it as a free PDF, probably on DriveThruRPG or something, to all patrons. The challenge will weave into the existing adventure campaign based upon when it happens. So if the party happens to be in G3, the Hall of Fire Giant King, in room 11 on level 2, which is called the Temple of the Eye, if you know your old G3 module really well, I'll add a secret passage to a unique boss encounter that's fitting for the campaign, that's in context, that works with it, not just some random thing like, oh, look, it's the Ogre Magi or it's a genie in a bottle. I'm not going to do anything silly. It's going to be something interconnected, appropriate, but should be a surprise. It's fitting with the campaign. I'll include a custom artifact magical item, my own discretion of how powerful it'll be. It'll be incredibly powerful or slightly powerful, but what it will be is associated with the enemy that would have it. So, if there's going to be some kind of Drow war party and there's a high priestess in there, you're probably going to get an item off the high priestess that's going to be very valuable at D3 or Queen of Demonwood pits. So another thing I've added is, hey, let's make these goals even further. And none of them are about money. They're always about people that are patrons. So they're not like, if I make $1,000, none of them are like that. So when I reach 100 patrons, I'll write a short story that's 10 to 25 pages, works as a flashback memory between any of the 2 characters. I like to write novels. I've written a novel and published it myself in the past, but the idea here is to give you more information about some of the characters, because we have a 7-character ensemble cast, and you don't really know where they came from. Like the first time you started watching them play, they're level 10, and you know they're from the Tiger Nomads and the other groups from Ket, but you don't know a lot about their history. And you have to watch every single episode and pay really close attention, like fans do in Star Wars, to pick up subtle details about Luke Skywalker's sister, things like that. So it's the same kind of thing here. So in this situation, I'll be able to make something that's digestible. You can download for free on your Kindle or your ebook, and you can read about a moment that happened in the past. Like, for example, the one time where Eliphanisi actually saved her sister, Felcherna, and that's why they're so close. And another goal, the biggest goal I've set so far is at 250. So if we get 250 people that are patrons, I'll actually do the following. I'll make an entire module that integrates within the current Greyhawk campaign and broadcast it live and distribute it for free as a PDF to all patrons. So here's an example, right? This challenge will weave into the existing adventure. It'll be determined by when this event happens. So if we're in D1, Descent into the Depths, or we're doing the Shrine of the Kuatoa, or we happen to move on to Expedition of the Barrier Peaks, it's taken us about 3 to 4 weeks to get through one of these modules. The adventure will happen related to that point in time. So in some ways, you actually have a little bit of control of that by pushing us over that. When we get really close to the edge boundary, I'll say it could happen this week. The party's going to keep on pushing through. And so, for example, let's say it happened in the Vaults of Drought, Hex R247. That's the Seleucia Belgos Master of Bats area. What I would do is I would add a secret passage to maybe a never discovered hex with a powerful drow theme, such as an underground river wharf under the command of a high priestess, where she and her detachment handles the shipping of offerings from Lolth between Erlhai Sinlu. I probably pronounced that wrong. We all know that Gary Gygax's daughter. That's a twist on his daughter's name. And another drow city never before detailed, such as the area northwest. So you can even see right here, what I would do, this is where that first hex is I'm talking about. Let's say our party was there when we hit 250. What I would do is I'd make a module that I distribute free that maybe does this area here. And that's just one of millions of ideas. It'd take me like 10 minutes to come up with a cool idea. And then it just takes time and energy to write it, draw the cool maps, get all the monster encounters made, run the episode live, and I would distribute it for free. So you could actually download the module for free and follow along. And it wouldn't be a situation where I'm interpreting the module, an old classic module. I would fully flush it out in full detail, which would be really fun. Artwork would probably be wonderful chicken scratches just like this. So, a unique module like this would include multiple boss encounters. One of the things with a lot of the older classic modules is they're a little bit of hack and slash kind of a grind, which is okay. They're like fortresses, like the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief. There's tons and tons and tons of rooms. Some rooms have nothing in it. Some rooms have it's a bunch of female giants that aren't really challenging, or 25 orc slaves, yawn. So that stuff's all pretty good, but the real excitement is like kicking in the door in the Great Chamber or the Great Hall, or going into, the Hill Giant Chief Azra's bedroom and fighting him and his wife, is face to face in their own bedroom. Those are the moments that are really exciting. So a module like this, if we hit 250, I'll create something that's really, really memorable and really exciting with custom magic items. So that would be a real interesting twist, because you would have new content that you can follow along with, you get for free, you can give it to your friends, do whatever you want to do with it. You can't sell it, but you can do anything you want to do with it otherwise. Distribute it all over the place, doesn't matter to me. But you can follow along as we actually play through it. And I would actually stop the entire campaign and go off this branch journey and then come back where we left off. So that'd be a really cool thing to do as well. So the Patreon page, like I said a few minutes ago, is a real anchor point if you want to get involved in stuff. It helps you keep up with what happened. It helps you find the quick little moments that are bookmarked on YouTube instead of trying to figure out where they are. It helps you find out what's happening with some of the goals we're trying to set. I think it's a fun way for you to get involved in something that's cooler than just watching the occasional video. Now, let me talk about tiers. Now, one thing Patreon does, it allows people to create tiers. Some people do things and they create, hey, I wrote a song and it's really cool and I got a backup vocalist and I'm singing main vocals. I mix it in a studio and here's my 3-minute, Black Sabbath tribute song. And they're going to say, if you can pay for the song for $3 or $2, they're selling a one-off item once. What I decided to do, I'm not really selling objects or selling things. I mean, you could sell these maps, but they're just freehand maps. They're not like something someone's going to buy. There's plenty of beautiful digital maps for people to use. So I decided, you know what I'll do? I'll put content that's really, really detailed behind these little tiers for someone who just really loves this stuff. If you really, really love it and you want to contribute a little bit, I'll use the money that comes from this to do things like buy a better camera and buy better lights and make the show better. And ultimately, maybe one day we'll have Raoul Parther minis in there instead of the characters made on fender washers. So let's just talk about these tiers. This first one right here is basically just like a monthly subscription for $2. If you join that tier, then you're going to get access to certain postings and things that are in the website that are behind that tier. Like, for example, let me give you a quick example here of one that I did. When I first started running this stuff, I was like, you know what? I have a lot of custom rules that some people didn't know what they were. And I didn't want to write and upload a digital drive-through RPG now 7-page PDF that explained how I handle some of these rules. I tell you what I'll do. I'll just make a really detailed posting on Patreon. Someone can dig it up. So let's just go back in time here a little bit. So here's a way in, back halls, behind, things like this. Like here's a photograph of my setup and how it works. behind the screen reward. There's a video reward. Here, a recap. I had a recap I had unlocked. So what would happen with this one? I'll just show it to you real quick. Let's say you missed a whole season. So you could actually just read like the web page of what happened the whole season. It goes from the very beginning and has screenshots and talks through every single detail that happened. So this is like Cliff Notes. So behind that basic tier, I'll put this kind of stuff in here. And this is a way for someone, hey, I'm really into the Rolling Stones. Which album should I buy first? It's a way for you to like go dig around quickly and digest the content and see all these new shows, these shows that were made in the past. And you may go, you know what, this sounds pretty cool, but I actually want to see the back halls because that episode sounds fun. When they kick in the door here and they attack all these young hill giants that roll around doing jujitsu and wrestling, I want to see how they handle this fight because what happens is a lot of stone giants come rushing down the hallway after they wipe this room out, and they have a very, very nasty situation where they almost get stuck and trapped in this room. So if that's interesting to you, you found out about it because you got this inside look recap. And it takes time to make these things. It takes time to make everything. But that's also a really fun way for you to get those kind of details. So what I try to do is at the end or of a long period of time, I try to do a recap and walk through situations like how they made the decision, where to go when they got this map, and I give you links to things like that. So let's go back to the tiers again. So let's just go to the core page. Let's go here. So there's 3 tiers total. The second tier is I call it behind the DM screen. So what I do with this one's I don't know, was it $10? It's a $10 a month thing, right? And don't feel pressure to do this stuff. If you do, that's great. It helps in the long run because right now I'm using a pretty decent Logitech camera. It's not the best in the world. I'd like to use a professional digital camera. I have a coworker who does digital production, and he said, if you get a great camera like this, you'll be able to do all kinds of bokeh lighting and things like that. So I was like, well, maybe if people like it, they'll be able to support it. So it's a way for you to say, hey, your stuff is cool, and in exchange for that, I'll share with you details like how do I come up with my DM notes? How do I handle the storyline? How do I make some of the modifications to the original module? Why I decided to change this from here to here, which is Game Designer Insights. The player choice polls. At some point, I'll put very advanced, detailed player choice polls up, like Mercedes has been very much kicking the front door. We want to change her basic AI to have Zoller start stepping up more. Which of the following AI routines do you want Zoller to do? As if it was a computer game, like, oh gosh, what was that one game that was done a long time ago? Oh, I can't remember. It was Neverwinter Nights. It was one of the games done by BioWare. I forgot what it was. But anyway, BioWare did a game where you could configure all the AI of all the different characters, not the Baldur's Gate stuff. It was the stuff when they did their own stuff. But I would put that kind of information behind the scenes. I would do drawing technique tutorials, sketches, how I make the tokens. The tokens are a really interesting method I picked up from someone else, but I modified their method to make it work for me. When I got ready to buy all the equipment and buy all the stuff, I'll do a posting that says, here's how you do it. Go to here, buy this, get this. I think I did the entire setup for the whole show for probably a grand total of $40, not including the web camera, because I bought the web camera on sale. Story development details. A lot of times I'll reveal information like, listen, I'm hoping the party doesn't go in this area, but if they do, they could get killed. And so I'm not going to change the encounter. I'm going to make it really hard, but when playing this area, we're going to be super careful, but I don't want the party to know this. So I'll reveal details about stuff I'm going to make decisions on by trying to keep it on the up and up and fair. Other things are kind of fun. Some people like to see production photos, like when you were doing this one episode and you broke the glass, how did it happen? What did you do with the glass? How did you replace it? I'll also put a live episode schedule. So some people want to catch stuff live. Like if you're really into a show that's on to be on Netflix, so when House of Cards Season 1 came out, you probably watched it, all the episodes the first night. So if you really want to do that and really get engaged, you think it's fun, I'll put that stuff in that tier as well. There's a final tier as well, which is more something you would see for someone from the Renaissance, a true patron. This one will do everything that all the other tiers do, but it's really just designed for someone who's obviously extremely wealthy. Once they do what you do is cool. Here's $25 a month. I love it. And so, don't feel pressure to do that. Like I said in the very beginning, what you should do, bookmark my Patreon page, check this thing often. Anytime anything happens, it's going to go up here. You don't even have to pay a penny. And if you want to find videos, just come to YouTube video channel every now and then. You can look for the latest video. But just seeing a video up and go, here's a video here, 1 hour and 29 minutes. If you go to the Patreon page, you can find out the information about what happened with that episode, what's there to look for ahead of time, and you can decide whether you want to watch it or not. Or you may want to be like, what happened with the voting when the voting finished? Because when the voting does finish, we're gonna make some changes. So let's just talk about some of the things that are going to happen in the episode next. Let's just turn the web camera on too, and we'll talk about what happened last episode. So here's our basic splash screen. And here's the core storyline, which we've gone over many, many times in previous episodes. And just super recap, our players in the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. They've already wiped out everything of necessary merit in down here at the steading of the Hill Giant Chief. This is the Glacial Rift, the back cover, the infamous photo of with the frozen lake at the bottom. They've gone through some of it. They've got the drow letter that led them here. They've gotten the letter that talks about the sacrifice, the child to Lolth. All that stuff's on the Patreon page too. They also got this map. And let's just look over here first. So last episode, this is all going to connect back to the engagement sim. This is what they've done so far, okay? So they came down here and they worked through this area and killed all the frost giants that were sleeping in this area here and the ones that were over here, and they set up camp and rested overnight. They listened down this hallway and they heard noise, but they didn't go down that way. They went back out to the frozen cliff ledge. Remember, this is 250 feet above the floor, and they went all the way down here and they encountered a number of winter wolves. And they were able to convince the winter wolves using druid abilities and an animal friendship and things like that to get the winter wolves to evac and get out of the area. So the winter wolves were warned to run away. Then this room here, which I actually still have the map here sitting next to me. Let me just pull it and throw it to you real quick without catching it on fire. So let's just move this candle out of the way so we don't burn the house down. Remember, all the maps are north is up for you. We had this room where we had these frozen adventures in blocks of ice, right? So let's just pull that around like this. You may remember the last episode. If you haven't seen it, there's a fantastic use of Wall of Flame, which is a magical fire by the druid, maintained for over an hour to slowly melt these things down to ensure the items that were inside didn't get burned up. So this map on the left, this shows us what have they done. But the rift, these are all cave entrances that you can see from here. So if you're standing on this lip and you look across the valley here, look across the rift, you can see these other cave, but you can't see in. And if you've played the module from the very beginning yourself, you know there's a lot more content in here, right? But they found a map and a map tube. They also found some other items. So let's talk about that real quick. This thing on the right is an example of the map, but I'm going to jump down first before we go any further, and let's talk about some of those magic items. So in the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, Obscura ends up with this Giant Slayer, and the reason for that is that she's the highest intelligence. She and Tolo the Cleric are kind of like scholars, so they're both from Ket. So this Giant Slayer is an ego weapon, which means it can telepathically communicate with the person that owns it or is bonded to it. So it speaks all giant languages. So she's been using it for that purposes. So imagine she's running around a giant, it's a long sword. She has it strapped to her back. It's not a bastard sword. She would never use it because she's an illusionist. So she has that on her. That's one of the major magic items they picked up in the Steading Hill Giant Chief they hung out with. Now, when they melted these ice blocks in the last episode, which is the Dogs of Wars episode for Season 2, Episode 3, they got the Scroll of Protection from Elements, which is a very powerful version of just a good old-fashioned one, which gives whoever used the scroll, it has a 1-day duration. It gives them +5 to all saves that involve elemental damage. Not just fire, that means electricity like lightning bolt or acid or anything else, any kind of non-physical damage that would protect that person and help them. That would be a tough one to know when to use because you're going to have a day, and there are situations where our players go and camp for a period of time before they move on and get spells recovered. So far, they've been doing pretty good. So that would be a tricky one to learn how to use. The Ring of Fire Resistance, that's something that we would probably give to a frontline fighter. It's a fire opal worth 10,000 gold pieces. It's +5 to all saves versus fire, -10 damage to any fire damage. So say you got hit with a burning damage from something like in the Hall of Fire, like a Hellhound, there was a burning dot on you, and the dot did 3d6 damage every round. Let's just see what that might be like, right? So say you're getting hit every round, you're getting hit with 3d6 fire burning damage. So you have 7, 8 in round number 1, and then in round number 2, it's 6, and 6 is 12, and +1 is 13. So you take 10 off that. This is only 3. Right? So that would be a very nice weapon to have for someone who's a frontline fighter. Probably Obscura or Mercedes will end up with that in their possession. Next, we have a Cold Wand. Obviously, this goes to Obscura. It's a no-brainer. She currently has another magic item. We'll just pull up her sheet real quick. She has a Staff of Storms that she's used once. This Staff of Storms is an artifact. It allows her to cast Ice Storm 5 times a day. That's very nasty, which is a big area effect ice spell that freezes enemies and bludgeons them and does tons of damage. So you can see also at the bottom of her sheet, I've got the Giant Slayer in her inventory. So the Cold Wand that we have, let's go down here back to the loot list. She's going to hold on to that. The way Obscura has been playing is she's been reserving. She's not running in the front of the lines and blasting Phantasmal Force the moment she's has to. They've kind of been melee training things relatively well. When things get nasty, then the casters step forward and start doing this stuff. So the Cold Wand will come in handy as we get into more area effect encounters, and they're going to happen, believe me. If you know these modules, you know it gets much more nasty. Now here's the one I talked about a moment ago. We have this jeweled belt, and at the end of the episode, no one really noticed it. But after everyone returned back to the cave from the very beginning and camped up and got their spells back and did some identification, this turns out to be a girdle of fire giant strength. And if you go to the old classic DM's guide and type in fire giant or girdle of fire giant strength, there's a potion, and we're using the potion effects here. So you get a 7,500 pound weight allowance. Now it doesn't mean you become big like a fire giant. If you have this big crazy belt on, probably have to make new notches in the belt to wear it. You'll be able to lift and move 7,500 pounds. Okay, let me give you an example. My motorcycle probably weighs 800 pounds. So you can lift 10 motorcycles. I've got a V-twin 1600 big motorcycle. If someone has a car, like a little Kia Sport, it probably weighs 3,200 pounds. So this is someone able to lift what I would call like a concrete truck. A concrete truck with no concrete in it probably weighs 7,500 pounds. So that's pretty nasty, but it's D&D. It's first edition. It's pretty much overblown. It's pretty crazy. So if you want someone to carry all the gold, and you've got that belt on, and you've got enough room, if you had a bag of holding, that'd be fantastic. You could put a backpack on you and carry lots of heavy loot. Now, this interesting element is that the whole story of the whole series has not been about grabbing booty, grabbing loot. It's been about find this abducted child. So right now, that's really, really beneficial. Now, the other thing about this is really nasty is the plus 10 damage bonus. Now, it's not plus 10 to hit. It's not helping you hit better. It's not like an enhanced weapon that does bonus to hit and bonus damage. It just does additional damage because you're so darn strong. It's like being on steroids if you're an MMA fighter. It also turns your Benbar's lift gate number to 80%. So there's no way you would ever be put into a prison cell without being able to Hulk your way out of it. All right. So those are the key magic items that the party's discovered. They've got this the map of the glacial rift, which shows the Yato Mountains. They're here now. They got the Drow map that shows a long-term goal, what's happening with the Drow, what their plan is for the child. They got a map of the upper and lower area. So tonight, what I'm going to do, tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this high-detailed version of this map and write an article that says what the party has discovered about this map. Now, one thing you're going to notice right away is the map isn't super detailed, okay? And it has, you can probably read this word here pretty simply. But what do all these words mean? And this is using a particular font that's going to represent a particular language. So if you want to find out what that is, I'm going to put this map on the Patreon page, but just free for everyone to take a look at. And I'm going to have options as to what the party decides to do next. So let's just look at my mouse cursor here in the middle, right? So far, the party's taking care of this room up here in the upper right-hand corner. They've taken care of the frost giants over here. They came in from the north. Remember, north is always top for you. And they came in here. This is where the winter wolves were in the episode Dogs of War. And this is where the little frozen blocks of ice were, the way they got these magic items. And this map was in one of the map tubes. So now they have to decide where to go. They've got this rough map that shows all these cave entrances that lead. Like this one's a dead end. This one has a series of caves that these two caves loop around. This cave over here on the west side comes all the way, loops around. If you go down to here, you can see there's something round like a pillar of frost and snow here. If you've never played the module before, wow, what do you do? If you played the module before, it's still cool for you to vote. Like if you know what's in here, I'm not making dramatic changes. You're not going to find Drow War Party in this room here. If you know what Ogre Magi's are all about, you know how nasty that's going to be. So it's a cool chance for you old schoolers who know the module and know some of the basics of it, know that I embellish it slightly, but I keep true to the original classic. You know what things like this mean if you know the original module. But deciphering what this means, this is actually an alphabet. That's a challenge for you to try to figure out. The party's going to try to figure that out. I'm going to put that as a conversation/result paraphrase as Cliff Notes on the Patreon page, and then you can vote for what their options are. To give you a quick snapshot. Like, for example, they might be like, let's go back up here and go down this path. Because remember, look over here. This is all they really know. All they really know is what's happened over here. They know there's cave entrances, but they don't know what's behind them. But they can go and stand here and look across here and say, hey, look, it looks like if we go into these caves here, we can weave through this whole area here. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4 markers in it, but these just have single markers. So we can go in here, wipe this out, come in here, wipe this out, come in here, wipe this out, assume it's even an enemy. It looks like we could go down all the way down to here and investigate what this is. This is a sloping ramp. We can come up this way and circle around. There's all kinds of options. So there'll be a number of options, probably like 10 to 12 options, and you'll get to vote on which one you want to do, and that will determine where we go next. It's not going to change what happens there. It's just going to give you a chance to determine where the party goes next. So hope you had fun checking this episode out. I know it's a little longer than normal, but once again, just want to remind everyone, like, if you want to know what's going on, you want to get involved, go bookmark the Patreon page. All you got to do is just search for classic_DM, and you're there. If you had fun watching the videos, feel free to engage in any kind of conversation, good, positive feedback, negative feedback, accolades, jokes. I like it all. It's all fun. So I listen to all feedback, and I try to take it on board as best I can. And if you see me posting any of the Facebook groups, say hello and let me know if you like the show or not. It's always fun to hear from other people if they're enjoying it too. That's it for now. And the next episode will probably be actually the adventure, just pure combat, going forward with where the fans determine, where the people who watch the show, where they vote on where they want to go next. All right? Have fun, and we'll talk to you real soon. This is Classic DM, and have a great day.